I'm Lara Puopolo and this is my Fashion Practitioner case study presentation where I'll be taking you through my journey of career research and reaching out to people already in the industry. Firstly, an introduction to myself and my interests. My personality type is the protagonist, an ENFJ, which means I'm passionate and altruistic. However, it can also mean I'm intense and overly empathetic. I see myself as a natural leader and I enjoy motivating people. Film photography is one of my main passions and I've been lucky enough to have my work featured in a past issue of Lithium magazine. I like selling on Depop as it's a great way that I can earn some money on the side and also gives me a chance to brand myself in any way that I want. And finally, I love learning new crafts such as crocheting, sewing and just discovering new ways I can upcycle my old clothes. I work in K Vintage and try to buy mainly second-hand as slow fashion and sustainability is something really close to my heart. Here's some of my film photography portfolio over the past couple of years. I then began looking into 5 different career paths in the fashion industry, and here's the research that I gathered. I started with fashion photographer. There are 3 main sectors to go into, which are editorial, advertising or catalogue shoots. The one that's most appealing to me is editorial, as it comes with more freedom to express your own style of work rather than following a strict brief from someone else. The role involves having a good eye for creativity, making the products look their absolute best and being able to communicate well with a client and obviously knowing your way around the camera in and out of the studio. As an example of someone in this job role, I explored the work of Carrie-Anne Alder, or more commonly known on Instagram as Peggy Shoots Film. I followed her for a couple of years and really love her cinematic film style and the kind of people she collaborates with. Some of her notable clients include Playboy, Puma, Lady Gaga, Kali Uchis and SZA, just to name a few. Secondly, I looked at buyers. These are the people that make the link between the designer and the retailer. The job usually involves very team-based roles, researching upcoming trends, getting the timing and pricing right on products, and understanding what the consumer wants to buy with regards to prints, colour palettes and fabrics. When researching practitioners online in this job role, I came across John Skelton, who has previously worked as a buyer for Selfridges and Harrods before setting up his own London-based designer boutique. The retail space set itself apart from others with its art installation-like interior, whilst carrying fashion alongside books and music. The next job role I looked into was in public relations. Working in fashion PR means getting a company or brand the right kind of exposure in the media. It's basically like trying to convince the public that this is the brand they want to be buying from. The job usually involves understanding the brand's audience, working alongside celebrities and influencers to promote various products, networking with relevant journalists, and also knowing how to respond to negative reviews. For this job role, I read up on Jill Weisskopf. She is the PR director for Self magazine and has over 10 years experience in the publishing industry. She initially wanted to be a writer, but after a PR internship with New York magazine, she knew that was the path she wanted to go down. She explains that one of the biggest challenges in her job is differentiating herself from other brands and making sure the brand story is being told the way she wants it to be. The 4th job role I looked into was at branding consultancy. These are the people who analyse and evaluate the brand identity and strategy of their clients. They usually offer insight in how their client can revitalise their brand. The job can involve conducting primary research with the general public, looking at competitor analysis and even giving the client a complete overhaul, from changing the brand name, packaging design or the use of social media. Mike Roberts is the Brand Experience Director at Keen Brands in Birmingham. I spoke to him briefly over Zoom about his job role and how he got into it. He told me he has been into design from a really young age when he used to do up his BMX bikes. He went to BCU back in the day and did a degree in product design, but said it was kind of boring as the pace was very slow. He then got a job at a brand consultancy agency which allowed him to travel all over the world for clients and eventually returned to Birmingham where he is now. The final job role that I researched was a creative director. They are team leaders that work in collaboration with stylists, models, photographers and many more people to oversee the image of the brand. They often spend time looking for inspiration for concept ideas and pitching ideas to clients with mood boards. Creative director of Beauty Papers magazine is Valerie Wicks, who also grew up in Birmingham. She studied graphic design at Central St Martin's and went on to found the Paris-based creative agency View Creatives in 2003. Beauty Papers was then born in 2015 with the aim of it to bring a fresh and liberal perspective on the image of beauty. My research then brought me to the conclusion that it was the role of the fashion photographer that I wanted to explore more. This led me onto my case study interview. Camille Mariette is an LA-based photographer with work referencing old Hollywood cinema, mid-century aesthetic and elaborate sets all built by herself from scratch. Her work explores our psychological landscapes as influenced by gender and power by combining grotesqueness and glamour. I followed Camille on Instagram for a couple of years and have always loved her work. I reached out to her on DM where she got back to me surprisingly fast and we arranged an interview over Zoom. This is some of her beautiful work and here is what she had to say about it. I asked her to tell me a bit about herself and what her interests are. She explained that she has grown up in this large Latino community in an LA suburb with lots of mid-century architecture and vintage objects around her. She's very into her 70s movies and listens to an extremely broad variety of music, which both help inspire her creativity as well as taking photos. She likes designing sets, styling, doing hair and makeup. I then asked her how she got into her work, where she told me it was completely by accident. She started as a painter but started dabbling in other media such as photography. She told me that she likes the idea of using photography for literally what it was meant for, and that is documenting and capturing a moment. My third question about what inspires her work. She explained how she likes collecting old photographs like vintage Playboys and strives for a 60s pornography aesthetic. I then asked her about her working day with a client. She said it's an early start and she will create a mood board for something to reference to when she is shooting, do a shopping trip for props and start piecing together things. Her two biggest projects so far have been with Valentino and Refinery 29. My next question was about how the photo shoot works when she is the one modelling, where she explained that she will sometimes get someone to focus the camera for her if she is struggling, but most of the time it's a lot of running back and forth to the camera on a timer in between takes. She compared her work to being almost painterly in a way that it is stationary, and she starts with a blank canvas of a room and from there she starts adding things into it. Question 6 was about her technical and personal skills needed for her work. She told me she has lots of random skills in sewing, hair makeup and photo editing software. She also made it clear that she is self-taught in photography and is in no way a tech wizard, which I found quite reassuring because neither am I. The next question, I asked her how she got her name put out there and managed to work with such big companies. She told me that it is her best friend who runs Polyester magazine, which is handy, and that she really hates networking with people for the sake of it. She used to do it and enjoys it, but doesn't really think too deeply into it anymore. This led me on to question 8, where I asked her how she finds her work. Camille explained that people contact her and that she doesn't really put much effort into getting her work out there, as she feels that her portfolio needs to be more diverse first. She said she is a waitress as she cannot rely on her photography to pay her bills, as she doesn't know where the next job is going to come from, which I found really interesting. She said she really likes doing waitressing but obviously doesn't want to do it forever, but she usually gets a big photography commission about 3 times a year. I then asked her about her favourite work, which was a zine she produced for Polyester magazine. This was her first work that she said felt cohesive to her, and it featured a lot of her friends and family. And finally, I asked her about her plans for the future. A list of people she would like to work with included Doja Cat, Kali Uchis, Gucci and Shrimps, but she said she didn't feel ready for this kind of project yet and needed to sharpen a few things up. For now, she said that making everyone look like a star is really fun. Overall, the interview went really well with Camille, and it was very interesting to hear how the environment and people around her impacted her work so much. One thing that did surprise me about her was that she also works full-time as a waitress, but that just goes to show that you can be working alongside brands like Valentino but still not have a stable income from your creative projects. For the final section of my presentation, I'll be talking you through my creative CV and career action plan. I started looking at examples of creative CVs online but struggled to find one that inspired me. So instead, I took to Pinterest, where I searched for graphic design posters, which gave me a wider response. I already knew what written content needed to go into it from attending the Creative CV workshop, so I just needed some visual inspiration. I'm drawn to 70s colours and patterns and love the black on orange. These are the ones that stood out to me the most. I then started playing around with different formats and established a solid layout. At first I wanted hints of green and to have it very organic looking, but thought this lacked a bit of depth, so I moved towards a pop of colour with the orange and ended up with this one as my final outcome. I messed around with different typefaces on Adobe fonts and different colours on InDesign to give the 70s graphic feel to it. For my career action plan, I put together a calendar running from November 2021 to April 2022 to help organise myself with the run up to my placement. I've added in all the relevant dates of when I worked and contacted people and when I plan to put together my portfolio to boost my online presence. February, I'll be researching placements. By March, I should have one and be finalising it with the company, and then in April, I will be attending it. And finally, I put together some brands I would like to work for in the future, although some of them are quite ambitious. Fred Perry was my first one, and it is a brand I'm very familiar with and buy into myself. I love modern skinhead culture and find the idea of documenting it through photography very intriguing. I love that this brand is more than just a logo, it almost feels like a community of misunderstood British subcultures. Depop is another company I would be interested in working for. I've been active on it since 2016 and I think it's a great way to encourage young people to shop secondhand and be more sustainable with their purchasing habits. I've also added in the magazine 032C as I have followed it for a few years now and engage really well with it. It always feels timely and relevant, and being a photographer for them would mean I could meet like-minded people. I then looked at Playboy as I'm fascinated at how it has changed over the years. I'm very passionate about female empowerment and the expression of sexual freedom, and it's something I love capturing through the lens. And finally, I would love to work for Gucci, with there being a lot of similarities between them and my work, as it's kind of what I try to base it on. I'm so drawn to their 70s patterns and earthy colours, and they always manage to execute the part perfectly. They know exactly what their consumer wants and they know how to deliver it. And finally, my evaluation. I'm really pleased with how my presentation turned out and the outcome of my research. It's really helped me explore different career paths I would consider and show me exactly what is needed to get them. I thoroughly enjoyed interviewing Camille as I found her so interesting to talk to and felt like we had a lot in common. However, she did make me realise how tough working as a freelance creative can be and how unreliable it is, no matter how big the client is that you are working for. What I've also took from this is that it can be more about who you know and not just what you know, so networking with people in your creative field is very important. Although my career plan was very ambitious, I know that if I really set my mind to do something that I will pursue it. I'm really looking forward to placement now and seeing what kind of experience it will bring me to help make my way into the industry. I hope you've enjoyed my presentation and thank you so much for listening.